Καλημέρα σας. Good morning, our guests. Allow me to make a short introduction of the project in Greek so that we save some time. I'll be able to speak much quicker. Είμαστε εδώ, συμμετέχουμε στην Patras IQ με το έργο μας Spread2inno, το Horizon Spread2inno, το οποίο έτσι με δύο λόγια αφορά την πιο καινοτομικές μεθόδους για υποστήριξη νεοφυών επιχειρήσεων, αξιοποιώντας την τεχνογνωσία των πιο επιτυχημένων χωρών, ευρωπαϊκών χωρών, κυρίως βορείων χωρών, αυτές που λέγονται strong innovators, οι οποίοι παρέχουν ενίσχυση, καινοτόμες μεθόδους, καινοτομικές μεθόδους και τεχνογνωσία σε εμάς τους νότιους, οι οποίοι είμαστε τουλάχιστον moderate innovators. Στο πλαίσιο του έργου υπάρχουν πάρα πολλές δράσεις και εκδηλώσεις. Μία από αυτές είναι η διοργάνωση τοπικών σεμιναρίων και pitching, διαγωνισμών pitching, 2 για κάθε έναν από τους νότιους εταίρους. Έτσι λοιπόν, στον πρώτο κύκλο των εκδηλώσεων αυτών, πραγματοποιήθηκε μια πολύ επιτυχημένη εκδήλωση στη Θεσσαλονίκη, παράλληλα με το συνέδριο του European Business Angels Network, του Abel, του περιβόητου, με έδρα της Βρυξέλλες, το οποίο είχε αποφασίσει να κάνει το ετήσιο συνέδριο του για πρώτη φορά στην Ελλάδα και στη Θεσσαλονίκη. Και έτσι συνδυάσαμε τις δύο εκδηλώσεις με αρκετή επιτυχία. Το δεύτερο έγινε στην Ιταλία, στο Ρίμινι, σε μια επίσης φοβερή έκθεση, η οποία λέγεται We Make the Future. Μετά ακολούθησαν τα 2 events στην Βουλγαρία, στη Σόφια, και το αμέσως επόμενο, το 5ο event, είναι το δικό μας σήμερα εδώ, παράλληλα με τις εκδηλώσεις της έκθεσης καινοτομίας Patras IQ. Να σας πω ότι οι εταίροι στο έργο μας είναι το Ίδρυμα Amaldi, Fondazione Amaldi από την Ιταλία με έδρα τη Ρώμη, μαζί με μια άλλη ιταλική εταιρεία που λέγεται Τεσέας, το γερμανικό Fraunhofer Institute με έδρα το Βερολίνο, το Cleantech Bulgaria από τη Σόφια της Βουλγαρίας, το Minds and Sparks, η εταιρεία Minds and Sparks από την Αυστρία και φυσικά το επιστημονικό ΠΑΡΚΟ ΠΑΤΡΩΝ, εκπροσωπώντας την Δυτική Ελλάδα και την Ελλάδα γενικότερα. Επειδή έχουμε καθυστερήσει λίγο στην έναρξη, να προχωρήσουμε αμέσως με την πρώτη μας παρουσίαση, η οποία θα γίνει με βίντεο παρουσίαση, καθώς ο αγαπητός μας εκπρόσωπος Abel Ferreira δεν κατάφερε να έχει φυσική παρουσία, αλλά μπόρεσε και κατέγραψε σε βίντεο την παρουσίασή του και μας την έστειλε. Είναι μια παρουσίαση που αφορά το πώς βλέπει ένας επενδυτής, ένας business angel, τον υποψήφιο επιχειρηματία, τον νέο επιχειρηματία και τι περιμένει να δει και να ακούσει από αυτόν. Είναι πολύ ενδιαφέρον γιατί καλύπτει όλα τα θέματα που θα περίμενε ένας επενδυτής να ακούσει από έναν startupper. Και τώρα θα συνεχίσω στα αγγλικά για να καταλαβαίνουν και οι επισκέπτες μας. We will start now with the first presentation, which is a video presentation by Mr. Abel Ferreira, Director of the European Union programs at the European Business Angels Network in Brussels. Thank you.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session on presenting your risk as an opportunity to early-stage investors. My name is Abel Fernandez. I'm EU Project Director at EBAN. I'll take my time to explain you who I am and why I'm here today, but maybe before we start, so we only have 50 minutes, let me introduce you the topics of today's session. First, as I mentioned, I would like to start with an introduction. That way you understand why I'm talking today and why I'm in this position. And then we need to understand, which I think it is important, to understand what is the investor perspective. Then why do investors reject deals? And then maybe once we have that clear, we can start to understand how we identify risk and why this is important. Then I will walk you through a series of methodologies for quantifying risks. And then we'll go and check a couple of case studies. I think it's 5. And then one couple of more slides with the conclusion of the session. Okay? I'm going to try to make this fun because I know it's a little bit difficult to follow a session online. So I'm trying to make this fun. Okay? So yeah, again, let's start from the beginning, which is the most important thing. Introduction. Who am I? My name is, as I said, Abel Fernandez. I'm a sociologist and a politologist, which makes me really love databases, Excel files, documents, data, and feel comfortable behind big Excel sheet. So yeah, I've been working at Ivan for 2 years now, doing EU-funded projects for 4 years. Before that, I worked for the Spanish national government. Then my university, alma mater, Universidad de Granada, and then also I did research for the Institute for Regional Development. No? So yeah, that's me, Abel Fernandez. And then, like I said, I'm working for EBAN, the European Business Angel Network. Okay, so we are based in Brussels, and we are a not-for-profit trade association. We were established in 1999, so yeah, a few years ago. And we have 200 plus members representing around 10,000 individuals, presence in 50 countries, not only Europe, but also Latin America, the States, Africa, and yeah, Asia, Middle East. So yeah, really wide network. So as you can see there, E from experience on all those 20 years, B of building a better tomorrow, which we really trust we are doing that while it's working on doing that. An amazing community of like-minded angels and other players in the early stage ecosystem, business support services as well are part of our members. And that makes altogether a strong network with 10,000 plus individuals trying to work for a better future. That's something that I do believe we're trying to do. So yeah, in a nutshell, even driving successful and responsible angel investing in Europe by empowering early stage investors, and also important, represents the angel community towards institutions. If you want to facilitate change, you have to be here. And that's the place where you can actually shout out your opinions. So yeah, that's who I am, and that's what we're doing. So maybe now that you have this idea of who I am and what is Ivan, we can try and talk a little bit about the investor perspective, because we all know that sometimes it might be a little bit difficult to find angel investor. We don't really know who they are, where they are. Most likely, if you picture one angel investor, it's going to be white man in his 50s, 60s years old. And we pretty much picture always the same way. But yeah, there's lots of different profiles of angels. Luckily, new generation has arrived, and they're bringing new and fresh ideas. So yeah, let's talk about the early stage investing. What is early stage investing? Well, it's quite obvious, right? It's a form of a high risk and also high reward investing. It's done at the very early stages of the life of a company. It's your opportunity to get into the root, the foundation of that company, and you might have the opportunity to receive a good return if you did your job correctly, no? If you did your first research, your due diligence correctly, no? That is important. So we already start with the first challenges. We hear and we read in the slides the word risk, of course reward, and then also due diligence, no? So that, like, let's say 3 different steps where the first one can become the third one, actually, by passing that process of due diligence, no? So again, what is early stage investing? Well, it is indeed the process of investing capital in a startup in its very early stages, right? These investments can range from really small investments, pre-seed and seed, but then also venture capital, no? At the end, early stage is the stage of the company before it's gone public, before it is confirmed that it's successful, let's call it that way, no? But then we can say that the potential return on early stage investing can vary if it is done correctly or not. So it might depend a lot on you as investor, no? You will say, why are you talking a lot about investors? Because here in the audience, well, there in the audience, we have lots of founders, no, and lots of other companies, other representatives of other business service provider. But yeah, this is our perspective. I'm trying to reverse engineer the whole concept of presenting your risk to investor, no? So yeah, let's continue a little bit with the perspective of the investor. At the end, that potential return on early stage investments can be indeed much higher than other forms of investing. But then that means that it's also the risk is higher because the technology might be absolutely disruptive, opening new horizons. And at the same time, because of this disruption that brings, the return on investment can be much lower because it is that disruptive that is nonsense. So there is your role as an investor to try and measure all these pros and cons and assess and basically do your due diligence to understand if it is worth investing in this company, no? So quick recap, 4 bullet points now. Early stage investing and understanding the investor perspective. If you want to do this correctly, you have to invest in quality, early stage startups. So you have to do your research and prepare your due diligence process, assess your risks, those are associated with the startup. Do not put all your eggs in one basket, and then be prepared for a long-term return. So the horizon is quite difficult, right? So it's like, okay, first you need to find a good quality startup. Then you have to make sure that the risks are under control, let's say. Then you have to you have to replicate this because you have to put your eggs in different baskets. So you have to replicate this procedure. And then you have to wait. So, I mean, this doesn't look like the best option, right? So why would you invest in an early stage startup? No, it's risky, it's difficult, it seems quite tedious. So why are you doing that? No, I'm a really passionate person. You'll see that throughout the presentation. But I do believe that the people behind the startup, not the early stage investor, and really they are nuts. So they really believe in the ideas that the company is trying to develop, and in the individuals behind those ideas. No, I think that's more or less a way to sum up the mindset and the perspective of the early stage investor. No, but then, again, the session is not all about the perspective of the investor, but I think it was important that we were all aligned. That way we can understand why it is important to try and present your risks to the investor. No, so okay, let's try to reverse this a little bit. Let's dig in and try to understand how early stage investors perceive risk, because it is a perception. But before that, why do investors reject deals? Because that's the most common answer, right? You are a founder. I don't know if there's any founders here in the room. There in the room. But most likely, like the most common reply is no, right? No, you're asking for too much. No, this is out of topic. No, this is not in my vertical. No, no, no. That's a lot of no's. Yeah, and that might put you in a little bit of a tricky situation, because you might not be able to actually continue developing your ideas and escalate your company, right? Your startup. So this situation has a name. This is called the Valley of Death. Is where cash flow and time connect, and you are at the end of that red arrow, right? It's basically a situation where financial difficulties arrive to the company, and there is not that capital that helps you pass from the initial product development to making the benefits, not to make a profit. That's the Valley of Death. It's also called Twilight Zone, but at the end, you understand the concept, no? It's bypass the transition from one section to another, no? And it is being proved in years of academic research that one really reliable partner that you can have in this transition, in the walk of this Valley of Death, it's the early stage investors and public funds, no? At the end, this Valley of Death, it's this really difficult stage where when you are developing your company and you have a big challenge, and typically this challenge is related to finance, because it's not your only challenge, but it's usually the main one, no? So it is typically found in the initial seed funding or early stage investment, and it blocks you to accessing bigger rounds of investment, no? Or funding, no? So now that we know what is, we can picture the Valley of Death, let's see 6 main characteristics, no? So because of that lack of funding, lack of capital, you have limited access to different resources. So then that means that it is more difficult for you to develop your product. It might be more difficult for you to find your validation in the market. Of course, then you cannot generate revenue. Then that means that you cannot prove to your investors that you actually have attraction to the market. So you cannot secure fundings, and then you fail, basically. So then it is also, that's why it's called a Valley of Death. It's not positive, guys. It has to be difficult. But then there's lots of things we can learn. As you can see, lots of companies with success, right? So the only option you have is to be ready to walk this Valley of Death, no? So after all these problems, do you understand now why investors refuse to invest in 97% of the startups? I'm not just bringing up that number because, you know, I'm not bringing this from here. This comes from, we also do research, and we try to understand the mindset of the investor. And in our annual survey on why investors do not invest, this is this next slide are the reasons of why investors are not investing in the opportunities they have. No, and as you can see, the main one, the most voted one, is because the project had too many risks. It's not because the project is far. It's not because you don't like the technology. It's not because you don't like the team. It's a whole. It's the project has too many risks. How do you define risk? Because, I mean, it's a really wide concept, right? And what it is risk for you, it might not be a risk for me. We might see things differently because we have different backgrounds, because we have different approaches, because we have different levels of understanding the risk. No, so let's see if we can try first to facilitate our lives and try to understand how we can identify that risk, right? Then, once we have identified that risk, we will pass to the second step, which is mitigation strategies and how to use that risk to prove that you are ready to receive investments? Because that's what we want. That's what we are trying to understand here. Why are you talking so much if you're not bringing money? So yeah, let's first focus on the importance of risk identification and why this is important. Because like I said before, we have, as human individuals, we have different backgrounds, we have different profiles, we have different perceptions of the reality. And this also, it's also linked to the risk. As we can see in this chart, also from our annual research, why investors do not invest, we can see there's a huge difference between what it is perceived as risk versus what is the real risk. And I find this chart really interesting because we can see that the more developed is the mitigation process, the smaller the gap between the actual risk and the perception of the risk is. Does this mean that by having a mitigation program or mitigation process well developed, data-driven, usually proving that you have basically all the different futures or all the different horizons of your company under control? Does it mean that is less risky? It is not less risky. That only means that you have assessed your situation, you know your market, you know your company, you know your project, you know your team, and you know your financial situation. No? We will see that in the next step. No, but at the end, again, coming back to this this annual research, annual survey. Sorry. We also asked our investor if the project risks are reduced, are they more willing to invest in the companies? And the answer is yes. 96% said yes. So the problem is not the risk. It's talking to a person and understand and realize that she is not aware of that risk is there, and she has no plan on how to find a solution, no, or an alternative, or mitigate that risk, because that is important to acknowledge. The risk is there. We just need to find a solution. So I would say that this is good news, isn't it? I mean, that doesn't mean that they are not investing because they are risk. That means that they're not investing because that company has not a mitigation plan, has not a clear idea of the product, not a clear idea of who they have in the team, how is the market, what is their audience, what is the different future, no, the different horizons, no. So then that brings me to the following section, the different types of risks. If we revert back to the previous to what I said a few seconds before, we can identify these risks. So we have operational risk, we have market risk, financial, regulatory, technological, and human capital risk. At the end, these 6 different types of risks are somehow linked to the main pillars of the company, right? That's the idea. If you are able to identify what are the potential weaknesses of the company as a whole, you might be able to revert the situation. And that's the whole point of a mitigation plan, right? So I'm going to try to walk you through these types of risks with a few examples and a few tentatives of mitigation strategies linked to those examples. No? Then we'll see a few case studies of companies that managed to revert the situation, and then we'll jump on the conclusions. Okay. So start with the first one because it's the logical thing. Operational risks. What does it mean? That means that there is a potential for loss, and that is the result of an inadequate internal process, a system, or another internal event. What does it mean? Because this might be a little bit too generic, right? That means that you might have, for instance, supply chain disruption. You might have problem in the way that information is processed, or there might be like a human error, because that also happened. No, at the end, we're talking about operational, on the day-to-day, how things are done, how things are communicated in-house. No, so let's say we have a problem in the supply chain disruption, that an event happened. We have seen that, I mean, We are aware of what is going on now in the world. Lots of things are happening. Lots of things are affecting the supply chain when it comes to the logistics perspective. Not only natural disaster, but also indeed geopolitical issues. So you have to be aware that this might happen. That doesn't mean you have to be scared all the time, because something might happen. But this is something that needs to be assessed. So in order to try and cover on prepare, mitigate the risks coming from the operational perspective, you have to make sure that you have a robust process documentation where all your information is clear, that way there's no room for human error, for example, or you have different batteries of suppliers. That way, if one fails, you have two other options. And at the same time, in order to avoid, well, not to avoid, because that's pretty difficult, but to minimize failure, mistakes, you have to give your employees the opportunities to be trained. And that is fantastic, because it not only has a positive impact on the activities of your company, but also on their lives, because that way they're feeling like they are developing really their career, as a professional. So that's us, like, let's say, 2 positive points. Then moving on to the second risk, market risk. This is indeed linked to the overall economy. So would you say, Abel, but what are you talking about? How am I supposed to control what is going on in the world? First, you said that it might be a geopolitical, and now you're saying that this is the overall economy. No, I'm not saying that you have to, pick up your phone and call this or that guy and say, hey, what the heck are you doing? I mean, this is impacting negatively my company. No, that's not the case, no? But as we'll see, what is important here is the proactivity. Proactivity, and again, passion. If you believe in your idea, if you believe in your team, that is going to come naturally, actually. You have to be, let's stick to examples. There is an economic downturn, or there's a really, really, really rough competition, or the consumer has decided to have somehow iterated, and now there is another preference. Now your product is not accepted anymore in the market. So in order to understand that economic downturn, it is important to have a flexible business model. That way you can adapt your business to the market conditions. But then, it is really important to understand your market. That's what I mentioned earlier. If you don't understand your market, you cannot provide a solution to your client, because that's the whole point. If you don't have an audience, if you don't have a market, how are you gonna sell your product if there's no one that is buying it? And at the same time, we can also talk about diversification. You can try and sell diverse range of products. That way, you are not that niche. That's another business model, being niche and only selling that product. But if if there is a market iteration, then you're going to find yourself all alone. So up to you. Okay. Then I'm going to drink a little bit of coffee because there's something going on. Then we move to financial risk. Financial risk are not only external financial, not talking now about geopolitics of the country anymore, and now it's more internal. No, it's more about financial management. It is about cash flow problems. It's about debt. It's about currency fluctuations. And that is all internal. You have to make sure, and again, that it is a nice, clear plan with a nice, clear path, and with a easy-to-read management. We tend to say that routine is boring, but when it comes to financial, it's actually pretty good to have a well-detailed plan with no hiccups. So even though it's boring, it helps you define and forecast much better, right? This really helps companies to establish and to be ready for potential hiccups if they arrive, because you know where you can reallocate your resources depending on what is coming in the upcoming months, right? So then this is another risk that a company might face in this stage. Then we move to regulatory risk. This is again somehow linked to the two first ones. We're talking here about laws and about how your product is going to be accepted, depending on the regulations that might impact your business operation, the product, the compliance, on if it is viable or it's not viable anymore. No, so if there's any legal action that is linked to or impacting your sector, or a change in a specific law that has to change the whole industry now, or there is a compliance failure, no, if the inability to meet the legal requirements, no. So then again, I'm not asking you to be, of course, an expert in the field, but it is important too, since this is a really difficult topic to follow. Do a quick checkup every now and then with a counsel, with an expert. That way you make sure that you are on the right path. Don't let this slide and navigate in uncertainty, because that's the issue here, no? So it's important to monitor and understand if everything is in line with the product or the idea you are developing, and you are sticking to the law. No? At the end, that's the most important thing. Then linked to regulatory risk, it's a technological risk. We need to understand that it's a risk that comes from a challenge, sorry, or a failure in technology. No, it might happen that you have cybersecurity threat in the company, or your IT system it's really old, or the system fails. This is more also linked to operation. No, it's important to understand and to make sure that there's no security breach, and then you have all the systems and all your equipment updated to the latest version of their versions, and all your data is secure. No, so for this, the technological risk is also linked to the security threat, and make sure that you don't lose any relevant data, the most important data in your company. No? And then we move to the final risk, human capital risk. Here is again linked to more the human aspect, to the actual workforce, the team. If we want to develop the company, it might be difficult to find the right person, right, the right fit. And typically founders, well, we typically try to rely a little bit on our teams, and that way we make sure that we can develop our ideas the right in the right way. So we might face different barriers here. First one is the skill gaps, because let's say that we are an engineer, but you are not familiar with how to develop a business, no? So this is one of the first skill gaps. Ideally, you have to, you have a couple of options. You can train yourself, but then if you are better positioned, financially speaking, you can hire someone that could help you to develop your company, you know? Then also some disruption that may happen in the workplace, internal conflicts. So it's important to develop a series of strategies on how to develop, again, the talent in your team, how to attract talent to your team, how to engage your employees, and how to communicate. I think this is like one of the keys word of this session, no? Even though we are talking about risk, to me, the most important thing here is communication. Because we are all aware that risks are there. It's the truth. We cannot forget about that. Reality is there. But like I keep telling to my team every single day, you know, if we have something that is burning, you have to let me know, and then we can try and find, you know, a solution. So it's all about effective communication. Okay, so how do we, because now we're wrapping up this section, how do we quantify this risk? That's one of the most important things. We have been talking about all the different types of risks we can find, in 6 different pillars. But now, what are the tools? What are the methodologies for quantifying risk we can find out there? No, some of them might seem really familiar to you. Sorry, there's something in my throat and it's not letting me speak. Some of them you'll find really familiar. Some of them might be less familiar, but at the end you'll see that this is actually better implemented in a 360 approach. The idea is not to take these as silos and just take one of these methodologies and just follow that path. Ideally, what you should have is you should integrate all these 5 aspects in your mitigation plan. That way you make sure that you have all the corners covered. No? So let's start with the first one, the risk assessment model. This is something really simple. At the end is a matrix, more than a matrix, is a probability impact matrix. You are trying to understand if you can develop a structured approach to risk management. And then that means that you are trying to assign a numerical value to different aspects of one specific risk. That way, you can measure, you can try and evaluate the likelihood and the impact of that risk in your company. No, that way you can prioritize, which are, like I said before, the burning topic or the high risk area, and then you could reallocate your human resources, your team, into these specific areas. That way you put a little bit of human power there and try to fix this specific challenge. No, cover the area where help is needed and where more hands on deck are needed as well. No, so again, really easy. It's a simple matrix where you base on deadlines and timeline. You decide, you assign, a numerical value, and then you try to reallocate your company, your team, based on these numbers. No. So again, this is important to mention that it's not an isolated activity. It has to be. These methodologies have to be seen as a whole, because this is one key element that we tend to forget this. So let's move to the second option, the second methodology, because it's also linked to what I just said. The scenario analysis. This is more holistic, more a bigger view, wider view, 360 view of the whole scenario of what is going on, right? It is important to understand that we are not alone. I really like the word ecosystem, because that gives you an idea. If you mirror the natural counterpart of the ecosystem, if you see what an ecosystem is in the nature, you see that you have flora and fauna, and you not only have trees and birds, but you also have predators, you have worms. So there's lots of things that you don't even see in that ecosystem, but are there making sure that the ecosystem is in balance, right? And these are the things that we're trying to discover. Where are the worms of my ecosystem? Where are the predators of my ecosystem? How can I make sure that we are, safe and our ecosystem is balanced? That's why we're trying to do. Recognize where the risks are and how they can manifest. That's why we're talking about a scenario analysis. We could also call it environment analysis, no? But at the end, what we're trying to do by this is by envisioning different scenarios or horizons, you can try to identify what are these challenges and also opportunities. And that's the most important thing. That's the whole point of this session. Understanding what the risk is gives you room to new opportunities or new developing new ideas. That's why I'm bringing 5 case studies later, but I might need to speed up a little bit. So let's move to the next methodology for quantifying risk. I'm 100% sure that you are all familiar with this word, this concept, KPI, key performance indicator. This is really similar to the first methodology I already presented, but this is sorry, the idea is to quantify more measurable measurable criteria that actually reflect the impact of the risk in your organizational activities. No, we have to set up a series of metrics. Now we are not talking about value. Now we are talking about a series of metrics that you can track down and can do a quick checkup every now and then and make sure that you are going on the right path. This allows you to detect at an earliest stage where is the fire, basically. What are the potential risks? So if the fire is small, it's much easier to fight, right? It's that simple. Otherwise, it might burn the whole thing. So it is important to establish KPIs, and what is more important is to make sure that every now and then there is a quick checkup. That way we understand we are going the right direction and no risks, or there are risks, but they're under control, okay? Risks or threats. And then this will really help us to prepare our company for the future, because this will help us build the also called data room. This data room will feed then our historical data analysis. The data room is basically an Excel. Sorry, I already said I love Excels. But basically, this allows you to understand how your company reacts in the past to different threats and risks. Not only you as management, but also the team, how they understood the situation, how quickly they react, how the market reacts to your solution. So this is really important, no? To keep track of your KPIs, build up your data room, and understand how the company reacts to the fluctuations in the market. That really helps, no? It's like that says that you are basically walking on the giant's shoulder because you understand what's been done in the past. And it's not like you can see the future, but you can get ready for the future. So that's important, no? And this is again linked. You'll see it's difficult to if you're just joining the session to understand, because it's all the slides and all the topics are linked. No, it's more like a waterfall. This leads to the second methodology, informed decision making. This is basically that you are making your decisions based on quantified data, and you are data driven, and not trying to here reduce innovation, the room for innovation. No, this is really important. What we are trying to do here is to give to management, decision makers, the options, the data, to understand how the company reacts, how the market reacts to previous experience, and how these things were done in the past. So we try to avoid react from our gut, let's say, and try to automatize that reaction based on what's been done in the past. No. So these are the methodologies for quantifying risks. Again, disclaimer: it is really important to include all of them and to make sure that, maybe not all of them, but as you have seen, they are all interlinked. It's a linear approach, one after the other. And every now and then a checkup needs to be done, no? So if I have to present a few takeaways of this session, the first one is try to prioritize your risk. That way you have an understanding of what is your biggest fire, no? That will allow you to allocate your human resources to cover that fire, and then you have to find that continuous improvement, not that quick checkup, like I keep saying, no? So then let's move to the section case studies, where I'm going to introduce you a series of companies that faced this sort of valley of death, this area of uncertainty where things were not really clear. And I'm pretty sure you're familiar with all of them. And you can see how the phoenix was reborn somehow, no? So let's dig in because I'm running out of time. Apple. So one of the main risks they faced in the 90s is that they had financial difficulties. As I mentioned in the very beginning of the session, this is most typical one because it's the biggest challenge, typically. So they were not far from the bankruptcy. What they do? They stopped just producing computers, and they developed all the items we have nowadays. But not only that, they not only created the iPods, which we all loved. I don't know if you all have it, but the iPod Nano was one of the best ones. The iPhones and iPads, and then they created this unique ecosystem of products. And we can tell, no, it's almost a joke, no. And now they create the iPhone, and that brings the new charger, and the new charger has the new thing, and there's always a new thing that you can only buy from them. So it's indeed an ecosystem of products and services, and they are your go-to if you want to buy something from Apple. You just don't have the option. Okay, so all the devices are interlinked. So they became one of the most influential companies in the world from that iteration. No, they had that plan of creating computers. I still remember my first Mac. It was huge, really cool because you could see the inside of the computer. But that was it. That was really niche, dedicated to professionals, designers, and it was a little bit too niche. And then with all this new variety of products, they reached a wider audience. And now people doesn't really care if they have to pay $2,000 for a phone. They pay gladly because they are positioned in the market. So this is, I would say this is a success story. Same, next, Netflix. When Netflix started, it was a DVD by mail service. Imagine that. And then, of course, the streaming services were one of the biggest. So then they changed their business model totally. Instead of sending DVDs by mail, they decided to invest in original content production. So you can see that we all remember the beginnings of Netflix. They only had at the beginning a few series that were maybe not that great. Then they brought a few series with big names on screen, big success, and then they start building up on those. And then they added new films and new series that you can now find in Netflix. No, so at the end they became the main player in the streaming industry. So this is also a proof of iteration and understanding the market. No? Being aware of your ecosystem, being aware of your it wasn't ecosystem we use in the scenario, the actual scenario, analyzing the scenario. So let's move to the following. Amazon, same. In the beginning, they started with a bookstore. So you can see that at the end they specialize in the logistics. That's at the end what they are doing. So they included a huge variety, really big range of products. And now they wanted to make sure that the products arrive on time. And what they have developed is the logistics aspect of the company. The product is not the key element anymore, it's the logistic. So this is another way the business model was reframed, and it's now, again, a big success. This one, I'm also pretty sure you know it, but it's also really interesting. Lego. So in the beginning of the century, Lego was facing financial challenges because kids were not playing with Legos anymore. And what happened? They had to find a new audience. They had to find a new buyer for their products. So what did they do? They decided to create or to iterate their audience and focus on adults, fans of Lego. That community, those 80s, 90s kids that now were adults. And they were also interested in other topics, like, for instance, Harry Potter, Star Wars. And they tried to reach that audience by collaborating with the other brands. Say, okay, let's create a Lego made from Harry Potter, Star Wars. And there it is, Lego. I just finished my flowers bouquet out of Lego. I have it there. So they changed the product based on the preferences of the market. It's important to understand your audience, again, another part of the risk management. No? Again, one final one, because I'm running out of time, EVM, they face also challenges as the market shifts. So our personal computers, right? There was this series of years where we were more into laptops, and now with the gaming industry, things have shift a little bit. But they moved to consultancy and focus on the client. No? They also realized that there were lots of companies that were struggling with comms and digitalization and their online ecosystems. So they decided to focus more on the client and helping the client to understand how to navigate these digital ecosystems. And now, well, they transformed the world of clients, customer service in the digital ecosystem. No, becoming one of the biggest players. So they passed from hardware to software. Let's call it that way. No. So these are simple, quite well known. I'm pretty sure that you were already familiar with Netflix, Amazon, for sure. Example on how, on understanding what are your risks, understanding what is your ecosystem, what are your main barriers, you can try to, in a proactive manner, adapt your strategy and try to overcome these challenges. No? And as we have seen, if when you approach one investor, they start asking you questions, all type of questions, because that's basically due diligence. And you might not have the solution for all the answer to all these questions, right? But if you have a plan, that is reassuring. And at the end, that's what we are looking for. That is the first step of building up trust, right? And that's the whole point. Because at the end, you don't give money to someone you don't trust, right? So I'm about to wrap up. So let me share with you a few more takeaways for me. As I said, data-driven person, I believe that understanding what you have done in the past and how your company has reacted in the past really helps you create and scale up your company. I think this is really important. That's why I propose all these methodologies to mitigate your risks. I hope this was helpful. Of course, this was only a 50-minute session, so it's not like we can go really into detail. But if you want, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll be gladly, really happy to help and provide a series of templates and documents we have. Then, as a conclusions, I would like to mention that we are not born with resilience, right? Everyone is talking about the resilient economy, resilient companies. It's not like that is granted. We cannot take that for granted. Resilience, the only way you acquire resilience is through effort, daily basis, and life experience. That's why I kept saying that these risk mitigation plans need to be checked up often. That way you make sure that, through your days, you are in line with what your company wants to do, your market needs, and your idea. That's the most important thing, no? At least to me. So I'm not gonna share more slides with lots of content and boring stuff. As a recap, to me, the best way to prove to an investor that you can turn and change the mindset when it comes to the risks of your company is through patient, proactivity, and communication. Patient will facilitate you to keep an eye on your market, because if you love what you're doing, and it's a really common sentence, right? It's like, if you love what you're doing, it's not like you're working, but yeah, it comes naturally, basically. If you really like what you are doing, it's just you naturally check on what's the latest trend of this, the last product that, brand new product that arrived to the market. It's just natural, no? Then proactivity, quick reactions, be on top of your things, and understand that the more the problem slide, the worse it gets, no? And then communication. Communication is really important, no? Imagine that you have closed your deal with your investor, and they would like to understand where you are, what are your next steps. So it is really important to communicate, and to communicate with data, at least to me. That's why I really invite you to start building up that data room, do quick checkups with the main players in your ecosystem, try to gather as much information as possible from your customers, try to understand how they react to new products. It is true, we have seen videos on how they develop new products in the past. Do focus groups, they're fun. You get to understand your market. You get to test if your product will be accepted in the market. So yeah, communicate both with your audience and with your investors, and then of course with your team. No, it is really difficult to move forward if there is not clear guidance, and that's really important, no? To take care of your team. So that was it from my side. Just gonna pass to the final slide. This was all presenting your risk as an opportunity to early stage investors. Again, really important to make sure that you keep track of how your company has reacted in the past to market fluctuations, to the audience, how the team react to all this. And I will strongly invite you to start building up your data room. That will really help you to take decisions based on data and not based on your gut. Please, I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Can just say thanks for your time. Bye from Brussels, and that's it. Feel free to drop me an email if you need more information. And looking forward to receiving your feedback if needed. Okay, bye guys, thanks.
We thank our colleague Abel Fernandez for this deep dive into the risk issue, and I hope that his suggestions, advices, his presentations about the kind of risks that the potential investors examine and their consequences and the mitigation actions that they expect to hear from you, from startuppers, that they will be useful to all potential startuppers in the near future. I know from the EIC Accelerator program that the issue of risks is very important, and the mitigation actions that one has to present in his application are evaluated very, very cautiously. And the mitigation actions are studied in detail. Unfortunately, we don't have the chance for questions to our colleague Abel. So we continue our seminar with a presentation of how to build up a pitch that will attract the interest of a potential investor. Our colleague Ina Todorova from Cleantech, Bulgaria, an incubator and accelerator, will give us this presentation. Thank you.
Okay. So hello, everyone. Very glad to be here. Very glad to be able to support, on the first place, the teams that will be presenting tomorrow, but in a second as well, in general, all the people that are watching and will find this to be a useful information for creating your business presentations, let's say. As it was already mentioned, what we'll be talking today about is how to present your idea, your business, your startup, your scale-up, whatever you have been dealing with, depending, of course, on who is your audience. Our main focus will continue from the first presentation that we had on investors, but still there will be some tips and tricks that will be useful whenever you are presenting your idea in front of different types of stakeholders. But first, focusing on the investors, it is very important to be able to understand their mindset. So basically to do your homework and to make even a bit of a research, especially when you are targeting a specific company, venture capital, a business angel. So when you know that this person or this organization is focusing on supporting initiatives either from your industry or from your level of development, so from the stage of development of your idea, it's always good to personalize your content and your presentation and having those characteristics in mind. Of course, everything is important as information that you would provide for your startup. However, there are a few key elements that every investor will be looking at. A bit later in the presentation, I will show you and I will give you a suggestion for the main, let's say, up to 10 things to put on your slides as information. But at the end, it has to be that you present a compelling pitch deck or a presentation that actually shows the full potential of your idea and of your business being looked at from the different aspects. There are, of course, different ways to communicate what you're doing, what is your idea, depending on the event that you are at, the time that you have. So we will, you can see 3 options, let's say, starting in their order is based on their duration that they take. So basically the quickest option is the high concept pitch, then you have the elevator pitch and the pitch deck. Of course, today we will spend more time and focus on the last one, because this will be actually what you will be doing tomorrow. However, we'll also cover a bit of the high concept pitch, because as I said, it's super short and it can easily be integrated in the pitch deck. But first, something that actually counts for all the different formats and that will be, let's say, a valuable guide on how to structure your presentation. And not only how to structure it, but also how to go through it. Actually, it's one of the most important tools that you can use is storytelling. So presenting all your data, all the financials, the business plan, the problem that you're tackling and the solution that you're providing in a storyline, let's say. This will support you to actually create very specific type of engagement with your audience, which will be on a very emotional level once they know what was actually behind the creation of this idea and of this business. There is a, let's say, a well-accepted structure, and those are not the slides and not the information that you have to include, but more or less how to order the content that you're going to present. Of course, you should start with an opening, then clearly identify the problem that you're tackling. As you have probably all experienced, of course, this is the main selling point for an idea or for a product and a service, to actually show people what kind of problem you will be solving for them. Of course, once we have the problem and people recognize this problem as their own, you will be welcomed to actually present the solution as well. So how are you going to settle this matter? Market analysis, especially when we talk about presenting in front of investors, this is the one of the most important things, to make sure that you know your market very well, that you know who is your perfect customer, having their even as detailed as possible a persona, so you would be able to actually identify the market, check some statistics, see how you can position your product or service in the market. And then, of course, last but definitely not least, what is your value proposition? What makes you better than your competitors? Competitors is also definitely something that has to be part of your market analysis, where you are positioned, and what do you have to offer more than them. Business model is the next very important thing that investors will be looking at. It is very important to have a clear and concise model, regardless of what type of methodology you're going to be using. And a bit later today, you will actually get a guidance on this as well. It is a very essential topic, and in your pitch deck for investors specifically, you must include how are you going to generate revenue, how are you going to be managing your costs, and what is your plan to achieve some scalability. As I said, there are different model frameworks. You could choose between them, but in case you are still wondering, again, you will achieve some results in the later session of today, where you will get some more guidance on how to form your model. I already mentioned it, the importance of the strong value proposition. It is very important to clearly state that. So you could choose to either have a specific slide on it or somehow include it in your story. When it comes to slides, actually, don't worry about the amount of slides that you have, because this does not define the time that you will need. So it is totally up to you to order your information in different slides in order that they are neat, clear, and they give the message that you want to give. Next, there are, of course, different techniques to identify what is your unique value proposition. At the beginning, it might be more challenging, but with the time, especially when you do the market analysis, you will be able to clearly spot that. And with the more and more practice when it comes to pitching, you will get even a better master of communicating it. So it's very important to first start with your customer research, to understand exactly what is the problem that you're solving, as I said, or as you see on the slides, what is the pain that you're going to be, let's say, healing in a way with your service and a product. It is important at the beginning that you do your best to gather some feedback from the customers or from your potential customers on what they think about your idea, if they find it useful, if they would be your potential customers, so if they would invest in your solution. And of course, you should already before that know what are their needs and desires, so you can make the initial version, and then after the feedback you receive during the research that you make, to improve even better your product or service. Competitive analysis. It is a common thing in the startup ecosystem, especially when we talk about innovation and technology, to hear that there is no competition. Trust me, it's already the industries are so developed, the digitalization is way ahead from from years ago. So I would say it's almost impossible that there is no competition. So make sure that you consider all the different aspects of your product and service, what do they have to offer, and research very well what is already being presented on the market. Even though another business is not completely covering what you have to offer, even if it's covering only one aspect of it, you still have to consider it as a competition. So once you identify your competitors, it is important to exactly evaluate what they have to offer and how is your product or service different and better, of course. Benefits versus features, a very important topic, and very often it somehow gets confused. So it's one thing what features your product and service has, and it's a totally another thing what are the benefits that it provides. So focusing on the benefits, you have to make sure when presenting both to investors and to potential customers and markets to very clearly articulate what are the benefits that the customers are getting. So not just what features, let's say, your app is offering, or the hardware product that you have designed, or the service that you're offering, but more of what types of problems and how does it solve for the users. So indeed, how does it solve their problem? Maybe it saves money, maybe it saves time. It is important to spot those things and to clearly express them as well. Emotional appeal, it is very common that people perceive this as, how to say, not a very clean business tactic. But as I said at the beginning, it has always been like that, that people buy things because they need to cover a need that they have. So there is always the emotional appeal. So it is up to you to use this as a benefit when presenting your value proposition, but in general, when pitching about your product or a service, what are the emotional needs that your product fulfills, and what does it provide in terms of emotions to people? Showing what are the quantifiable results, or basically what are the outcomes for the customer from using your product or service. And this pointing this out, it actually helps you to create a more tangible value proposition. And then the cherry on top would be your unique selling point. So what is the thing that you mentioned very shortly, very briefly, with one sentence or with just a couple of words, that clearly shows that you have the thing that makes your product or service more special, better, and preferable for the people. At the end, of course, you will gather all this information, you will create your value proposition, you identify your unique selling point, you have your market analysis and everything, but don't take this as the final information that you have. You have to test, you have to go out there, make some consumer researches, again, gather feedback, and keep refining and improving your product and service. With the time, but at least initially until the point that you actually reach your type of stakeholders, type of customers that you have identified at the beginning. So, I already told you about the high concept pitch at the beginning. This is, I believe, the shortest and the most efficient way to support someone to understand what you are doing. So what is your idea? What do you want to do? There are only two rules in creating this high concept pitch, is that it has to be super short, so just one sentence or even a couple of words. Maybe it's not a full formulated sentence. And it has to somehow remind people of something that is well familiar, something that they can relate to in order to grasp the information. So maybe you have already heard from other people when they tell you that they bought something new, or they found a new app for something, that they would say, yeah, it's like YouTube, but then for something else. Or it is just like Uber, but then for something else. It is very important to be able to identify something that is already well familiar. It can be something that is now popular, or something that is known for many, many years already, that can help people to just in a glance grasp about your concept. It doesn't necessarily, though, has to mention another product or service. It can be also a descriptive sentence. For example, I have put here 4 examples of brands that I'm sure that you are all well aware of, with the super short examples on how you can present those brands. So, for example, on Uber, it's actually an app that can assure you are right no matter where you are. Of course, in the countries where Uber operates, though. Then for Airbnb, a unique selling point that can be part of the high concept pitch is actually that it allows you to stay in a cozy home instead of a cold hotel room. Then for Netflix, there is an unlimited TV shows and programs and movies for a very small monthly fee. Then, of course, it can be built up. So here you can say, yeah, if you bring on board your friends and family, it's even cheaper, and you have joint accounts, etc., etc. And then Tesla, it's creating electric cars that are better, quicker, and more fun to drive. Of course, I added this because it is true. Like, they have this nice screen, and you can play games and everything. But it's up to you to decide what is the audience and how would they perceive this. So for some people, maybe connecting driving as something super responsible and having fun, meanwhile, maybe it won't be a good combination. So you always have to keep in mind what is the audience that is going to be hearing this pitch. But now, going to the main point of today, and something that will be helpful both for tomorrow, as I said, but in general for your future chances to present your business in front of investors, in front of potential customers, and other different types of supporters. Problem statement. It has to be very clear, pointed out. It can be somehow visualized on your slides, or it can be a sentence written down. Or, of course, if your problem tackles multiple problems, you can, of course, list them. But make sure to try to get to the core. So what is really, really the thing that your solution is solving? Then, of course, what is the solution? Again, try to, if possible, include a visual because people will relate to your solution way quicker when they see it visualized. But if not, also try to not use full paragraphs of description, but maybe to use keywords and then further explain. And here, actually, I'm reminded to mention something important. You also have to keep in mind when creating your pitch deck, if you're going to be there to present it, or if you're submitting the pitch deck for someone to go through it. Because many times when you apply for, let's say, for grants, for European programs, you are obliged to attach your pitch deck. But if it consists only of some visuals and some brief bullet points, which would be perfect if you would be able to present it, but in this case there will be an evaluator looking at those slides, you have to make sure that this person will be able to receive the information only from the slides. So you always have to adapt your pitch deck depending on if you will be presenting or if someone from the team will be presenting, or it will be only looked at without opportunity for you to elaborate further on what is on the slides. Market analysis and opportunities. It is also very important, mainly for investors, of course. For the customer, this might be not so relevant information, but when it comes to investors, they need to know that you already did the effort to explore the market, to position yourself somewhere there on the map, and that you already checked what are the opportunities for you. Because most of the times when you participate in events or you go to some business breakfasts or some business events organized by venture capitals or business angels, investors, very often, and then with the practice, you will see that most of the investors, they focus on specific sectors, and it is part of their job to know very well the markets. So they will really know if you did this effort to explore and to already know for yourself where are you positioned, or if you decided to completely skip this step. Of course, later on, there will be the ones who will guide you further. Once, of course, they choose to invest in your idea, to guide you further on the industry and on the current market where you are based. Then we have the business model. I'm not going to go into full details here because, as I said, in the next session, you'll be very nicely guided through it. But still, it's very important that you position it and not just as, for example, if you decided to use the business model canvas, not just to take the canvas and put it on the slide. So nobody will be able to read through it with the time you present it. But to make sure that you include the different aspects of the business model in your presentation. Not necessarily all at once, as I said, but to make sure that your presentation is covering all the aspects that the business model that you chose has. Next, we have timeline and milestones. For investors, it is very important to know that you actually have a plan. Even though you're still at, let's say, early stage, you have the idea, but you didn't go maybe on the market, or you're just about to go on the market. It is very important for people who will back you up, especially in a financial way, to know that you have a goal. So you have a short-term, long-term plan. You know where you want to go. You have set a direction. Of course, maybe the steps will change with the time. But at least you should have a couple of milestones that you know that you have to achieve in order to support the growth of your business. Competition, it's good to always have some comparison. Mainly, this is how it is visualized, where you are on the market and what do you have to offer more than the competitors that you identified. Team. I still am being quite amazed when it comes to pitching and when it comes to pitching in front of investors, that very often people neglect this topic. They count on their physical presence or they count on how great the idea is in order to win the investors instead of showing actually what is the in-house expertise that they have. And I mean, okay, firstly in-house, but also mentioning if you receive some external support. So you have some mentors, some coaches, either from the industry or from the academia. It's always important to state clearly here in this slide for the team what are the resources in terms of expertise that you can count on and that you use in order to build up your business. Then some financial projections. We are heading now to the slides where you have to state what you are asking for, what you're going to use it for. But based on the timeline and the milestones that you set, you should also make sure that you have some, at least, of course, based on something actual, not just some numbers that you run through, I don't know, artificial intelligence or some random online number generator. You have to make sure that you know more or less what would be your revenue, what would be your profit, what would be your costs in order to make some financial projections. What do you look for? It's a must especially when you pitch in front of investors. So they would know if they can back you up, how realistic this number is. In terms, if you're looking for funding, of course, at some different stages, you might be looking for networks, you might be looking for mentoring, coaching, and different type of support. But especially when it comes to money, you need to make sure that what you already mentioned at the business plan, at the timeline and the milestones and the financial projections is related and it makes sense together with what amount of funding you are currently looking for. And then, of course, logically, how will you use the resources that you're looking for? So how will you distribute the amount of money? What type of expertise are you looking for? And it should be more or less, when you talk about the short-term planning, to be related to your current stage of development. And last but definitely not least, to have your contact details to make sure that even if you, let's say you finish your pitch deck and you have to leave, or maybe an investor who is currently listening to your pitch deck has to leave and won't have the time to approach you after your pitching presentation, they will be able to quickly take a photo of your contact details and they will be able to reach out to you later. Speaking of which, there are different techniques that you can actually get their attention with. So we will go to that in a bit as well. But until now, we were talking mainly about slides. So what is the information that you put? I said a couple of times that it's important to have a clear and neat slides with not too much information. But of course, this is a variable depending on what type of presentation you're preparing. Do not forget that there are different things from the slides that also create a great impact on your listeners, on the people that you are pitching at. So those are things as the body language, as the vocal tone, and the timing. Especially if you have a predefined timing, you must make sure that you respect it, that you prepare in a way to make the best use of this time. So let's say if you have 5 minutes or 10 minutes, that you order your slides in a way that you are sure that you will be providing the most important message, but in the best case scenario that you will be exactly done before your time runs out. And I said there are different techniques to also manage that. So maybe there will be people that feel better if they stand behind the desk or something that they don't have to move. There are others that feel way more comfortable to move around, to hold something, maybe to have a pen or something in their hand to keep them busy, so they do not focus on how nervous they are or if they have any other constraints when it comes to public speaking. Q&A, yeah, I don't know if probably, as I know, this will be streamed in YouTube for some time. So maybe if you put some questions as comments, we can later on try to find those and answer. Yeah, thank you very much.
I have a question. Can you expand a little bit on the vocal tone that you mentioned and give us a couple of examples? What kind of vocal tone you should use when you're pitching?
Yeah, that's a nice question that unfortunately doesn't have a single answer. Of course, it depends on many things. It depends on if you have a microphone or not. It depends on how big the room is and basically what is the atmosphere. Sometimes you have some networking events that are very, how to say, boutique and cozy, so it doesn't make sense that you shout and you speak super loudly so people feel, how to say, in a way intimidated. So you have to choose how to connect best with the people. It will be better in this sense to go slower, to make sure you make eye contact, and yeah, with the time this comes, like you start to sense it, how you have to approach different audiences. For example, if you're participating in some big event with a huge hall, even if you have a microphone, in order to keep people's attention, because when there are many people, people tend to start having small talks, etc. So then maybe you have to speak louder, faster, so you can keep them engaged to keep up with you and what you are saying. So yeah, it's varying a lot through the different context.
One more question. I've seen pitch deck presentations that are very dense, and I always advise startuppers to put all the information, a lot of information, covering all the issues that you showed at the latest slide, in 10 slides. But I've seen presentations that include 50 slides, 25 slides. They are very sparsely completed. In your opinion, what is, according to your experience, what is an optimum range of size for a pitch deck presentation, a 10-minute presentation? Huh?
For me personally, the amount of slides doesn't make the pitch. For example, the presentation that we had now, it was not super complex. It was not taking super long, but it is, as you can see, 36 slides. So it depends on more what, let's say, effects you want to have, if you want to keep information for, like, first, for example, like, can I change to a slides back? Let's see. For example, if you maybe just want to show quickly what you are going to talk about, then talk something before showing the content of the slide, because, and then it depends how good you are with the, let's say, presentation building softwares, how you can use their best capacity. One way is to have many slides and pop up with different information. Another way is to use transitions. So I think I always believe it's better to not have much information on one slide just to keep the presentation shorter. But somehow you have to find the best pace for you, for everyone who is presenting. to keep up both with slides and with the content saying. And again, this here differs. If you are going to be presenting, so you know that you will be there, elaborating more on what is on the slide is one thing. And if you are submitting a pitch deck, for example, applying for the European Innovation Council that we mentioned earlier, then it's completely another thing, because evaluators won't be able to hear you. They will only be able to evaluate your idea and your business based on what is on your slides.
Thank you, Ina. Now we will have a 10 to 15 minute break, and we will continue with another interesting seminar about business modeling. Thank you. And we continue after a short break with a presentation about business modeling from our colleagues from Fraunhofer IPK. You will introduce yourselves, I guess. Okay, thank you.
So, hello everybody. I'm Henry Buxmann and I'm here for Fraunhofer IPK. I'm a research associate there and do research on various topics: business model development, sustainability, innovation management. And together with my colleague Katrin Coudoux, we will now present business model discovery. We will talk about how you can create a business model, which tools you can use to facilitate it, to also communicate your business model, and we will also go into different business model patterns. So first, it's about the challenge of creating a business model or laying it down. Especially for you, young entrepreneurs and startups, you might not have the experience with development of business models. You also are in the early phase, you maybe don't have enough employees and resources to really create your business model. And you may also lack mentorship, which is often really important to get going and get the first steps done. However, it's very important to develop your business model, as a lot of studies have shown that it increases the survivability and growth rate of startups, and it also enables you to become more, 30% faster, reach the break-even point. Now we have a little interactive session, so for everybody who maybe watches at home or watches later on the live stream on YouTube, you can do that exercise at home as well. It's about the silly cow. So imagine we will now have a cow, we are a farmer. Here's a representation of an art installation of a cow to really show how perspectives can change and how many parts are creating a cow. And what I now would ask everybody to do is at home thinking about, you are a farmer or a business owner and you have one cow. What are the characteristics of this cow? Of course, it mews, it gives milk, it eats. Maybe you can also sell the meat. So these are some important characteristics. And think about, especially I would say with producing milk, what kind of business models, different business models can you create with just one cow? For that, at home, you would now have 5 minutes time. I will go ahead and show some options, some business models that you can create now. But of course, if you're doing it at home, you can just then stop the live stream and do the exercise for yourself. So if we look at the 8 business models, which are possibilities, especially looking at the way of selling milk, you can go with the direct sales model, which means that you are that you just sell the milk that you are basically producing from the cow. Classic move. I think the first thing that comes to mind when you think about a business model related to a cow. However, there are a lot of other ways to utilize the animal. You can also charge people for the cartons that they're holding. So basically, they can take as much milk as they want, but they have to pay for the cartons. Subscription model is also a way to utilize a cow. So basically, you offer customers a carton of milk for $3, and you can also offer them 20 cartons of milk for $40 a month, so a subscription model. A franchise model is also one viable option. So a farm sells their license to you to use their equipment to package, and you brand the milk using the name of the farm. Another model that is possible is the loss leader model. So you have one cow, and they can either buy very cheaply the milk for 50 cents, or you make another product out of the milk. For example, yogurt, cheese would be options where you sell on a higher price point. On demand is another way to utilize the business model. You can build an app for customers to order milk, and you charge them then for the delivery. Zifferblatt model is our 7th model. So this is charging the time that the people spending at your place to get the milk. And lastly, crowdsourcing is basically if you maybe want to have one cow and want another one, you ask people to donate money to you. And with that, you buy another cow. In exchange for that, they then get a certain amount of cartons of milk for free in the beginning. So if we look at business models and what they are there for, I would say, they are a blueprint defining how an organization creates, delivers, and captures value. It simplifies the complexity of a company, so it reduces all the different processes and operations to certain elements. And also, it is very important to explain how your company functions through that. If you have down a business model, we will now also go into some tools. It really makes it visible. You can communicate what your business actually does. And for that, one of the most prominent tools is the business model canvas. It was developed by Osterwalder and Pigneux in 2010, and is really widely used by a lot of research institutes, companies. Also the book where it was introduced has been translated into, I think, 40 different languages. So it's very well known and utilized in a lot of different ways. And with that tool, it's mainly about capturing value, or to measure how you capture value. So there are 9 elements, if you would apply the business model canvas, that you would have to fill out. Usually you would start from the outside, so the customer segments, and there you need to think about, okay, who are my customers? Who am I serving? How do my customers group are distinct? The next step would then go into the value proposition, which we also heard earlier in a presentation. What is the value that you bring to the customer? What makes your business unique? And the third point, you need to think about how is the relationship with the customer? Are there some after-sales processes? How do you interact with them? How do you communicate? Fourth would then be the business or distribution channels. How do you sell your product? People need to come into a store and buy it? Are you shipping? Is it just a virtual product that you're selling? That's also very important to define. Then thinking about the revenue streams. Do you have multiple revenue streams? Do you have one? How is it structured? How are you generating money? Next, we would then look more on the inside. First, key resources. What resources do you need to establish your business, to make your value proposition come through, and to, for example, also interact with your customers? This is also related to the key activities, where it's about which activities are crucial for your business to survive, to have a relationship with the customers to generate revenue. And also the key partners. Do you have certain suppliers that you work with, who you rely on? Do you have also employees could fall under that, or other mentors or contractors that you need to create value? And lastly, of course, cost is also a very important point to really figure out where are costs generated. Do I have high fixed costs? How can I maybe mitigate them or decrease them? So all of these 9 elements combined then give a good overview of your business model. And we can now look at the benefits that such a tool delivers to you. It is able, or you are able, if you fill out a business model canvas, to really visualize how your business model is laid out. It becomes more clear even to you. Maybe also if you have created a business already, you can still utilize this tool to think about certain processes inside your company that are maybe not so visible at the moment. It gives a really good overview. Also for communication purposes, it's a really important tool if you are going to an investor. We also heard about that business model should be presented in a pitch. You can highlight these are certain aspects of my business model that are working well and that are really important. And it's also an iterative process. That means maybe your business model changes with time. You can just fill out the canvas again and through that see the changes and adjust. And thirdly, it's also good to test different strategies. You can fill in your business model depending on which strategy you are using. You can align your activities. As I said earlier, you can see, okay, which key activities or key resources do I need to really create my value proposition? And lastly, also for risk mitigation. Maybe if you fill out the canvas, you realize, oh, my fixed costs are really high. That's something I should maybe do something about now because it can become a big problem later on. Now I will show you quickly just 2 examples of big companies that we also have heard in earlier presentations and how their business model looks like. Netflix, of course, has a customer segment, the mass markets. They don't specify a certain customer base. They want to reach as much people as possible, and they offer on-demand videos, their own production, and a large library. The relationship is a self-service platform, so people can just log into an account or their app and watch the videos. The channels are on the website, app stores, or through affiliated partners, and the revenue streams are through subscriptions. If we look at the key resources, of course, they need employees to create the stories. They need to license the certain films that they want to show on their platform. And key activities, therefore, is the procurement, it's the creation of own Netflix production, and so on. The key partners are then especially the, I would say, lawyers, also handling all the activities to acquire new film material to share on the platform, and cost structure, in-house productions, the costs for acquiring films to show on the website, and of course they need to pay their employees as well. Another really famous company is Zara, clothes and also and sometimes furniture manufacturer. Here the customer segments look a little bit different. They advertise or target women, men and children with their products. They offer clothes mainly, accessories, it's fast fashion, so it's more cheap than maybe a designer brand. And the relationship is often through the salespersons in the store. Channels are either direct channels, online or on social media, it's how they interact with their customers. And the revenue streams are then the sales from selling clothes or other items. Key resources are the stock that they have in closing, that's the most important one. And key activities, of course, designing, manufacturing, and distribution of the clothes that they want to sell in their stores. Key partners are the providers and the producers of these clothings, and also the holding company. And lastly, the cost, there are mainly fixed costs, so for renting, for electricity in the building, where they're selling all their clothing and furniture, and also other variable associated costs to maybe, for example, distribution channels, for logistics to get the products delivered to the stores. These can vary. So there's these 2 main cost factors for Zara. With that, I will hand over to my colleague Katrin Coudoux, who will now talk a little bit more about different business model patterns.
So thank you very much, Henry. I will now, after Henry has provided to you some insights about what a business model canvas is, I would first introduce you to some other models that can be used in terms of business model development, and then provide you with some more real-life examples about what is a business model, what are some strengths and weaknesses maybe of existing business models, and then go more deeper into the value proposition that my colleague Ina already raised, that is at the core of each business model, and finally to provide you some insights about what are actually business model patterns when it comes to how can you further develop your business model. So as mentioned here on this slide, you can see one alternative let's say structure of a business model, and it was developed by my former colleague Dr. Steinhöfel in 22 at Fraunhofer IPK, and what makes let's say this model very interesting, especially when you are a startup or a scale-up, is that it puts the resources at the very beginning of the model, because normally startups and scale-ups, of course, have a lack in terms of resources, might it be human capital or financial capital, and you can use this as a start in terms of when you define your business model. So you have 4 different building blocks. The first one, as mentioned, are the resources. The resources are used into the internal value chain, which consists of out of the primary activities and the supporting activities to create the value proposition. And at the end, of course, you have your profit equation. So I will zoom in a little bit so that you can see it better. In terms of the resources, when you define your business model, you can ask yourself what resources are actually required to create and deliver the value proposition. So you have, as mentioned, of course, financial capital. You might have, in special cases, of course, also manufactured capital. You can think about natural capital in case you are working, for example, with, let's say, sunlight or other forms of energy. You have the human capital, the organizational capital, and of course also the relationship capital. So what kind of relationships do you need in order to create your business model? When it comes to the internal value chain, here you can ask yourself what activities are actually required to create and deliver the value proposition, and how are they carried out. So for the primary activities, depending on if you have a product or another kind of offering, you might have inbound logistics, you have the operations, you have also marketing and sales, the outbound logistics, and maybe also customer service. For the supporting activities, you might have corporate infrastructure, human resource management, but of course, very important also the technology development and purchase. For the value proposition, here you can ask yourself, who are your target customers and what are the specific needs of these customers? And what service do you offer to your target customers that needs, what needs do they satisfy, or what do you want to actually, how do you want to differentiate yourself from the competition? And then of course, in terms of defining the price, you can ask yourself of what form of pricing are you pursuing and what price are your target customers actually willing to pay. Then you have the profit equation. Here, for filling out this canvas, you can ask yourself, what are the main sources of revenue from your business model, and how do they actually contribute to the overall revenue? And then finally, of course, you also have costs. So define what are the major costs arising from your business model, and how do they also contribute to the overall costs. So when speaking about business models, it's of course also highly important to understand that your business model is embedded in its environment. So you can define your business model itself, but also think about what factors might influence your business model. And here you have, you have basically the microenvironment. This is the direct environment of your business model. And it's basically influencing the performance of your business model and also the decisions you should make. And then you have the macro environment. This is the environment that you normally cannot influence. So it is, it includes, for example, the past factors, so political factors, economic factors, technological advancements, for example, social factors. There might be also legal factors, legislations, and so on, and environmental factors that influence your business model, and that you need to understand when you define your business model, also develop it further. So let's dive a bit deeper into some real-life examples from the past to understand better about what is successful business model development and what is not. You might remember, for example, the companies Coudoux and Polaroid. Both were, years ago, let's say, key players in the photography industry. But when the market changed and you had some technological advancements, direction to digital photography, they basically did not embrace their business model and did not innovate it further. So they don't play like a key role at the moment anymore in this industry. Then we have Blockbuster. You might remember it as a go-to place when it comes to movie rentals, but then we had some other companies disrupting the market, for example, like Netflix and other streaming companies, and also they did not change or pivot fast enough to adapt to this industry. Nokia and Motorola used to be very important tech companies for mobile phones or in the mobile phone industry, but also they missed basically the smartphone market and do not play like a key role anymore than they used to be. On the other hand, on this slide, you can see also companies such as, for example, IKEA, who, revolutionized like the furniture shopping that it used to be, because they had like the flat-packed designs and the do-it-yourself approach. Same applies for Uber and Airbnb, which are companies that basically don't have any assets on its own, but created like value to their customers in a completely new way, and create value without owning the primary assets. Then we also have something like PayPal, for example, who completely disrupted the financial transaction market. And each of these companies you can see here has a story in terms of business model development and shows how important it is to actually adapt to the changing market environment of your business model. So now that we understood the concept of business models a bit better and also showed some real-life examples, I would like to go a bit more into detail into what is the actual business model development process. And here there are, I would like to introduce you to three, let's say, major research sources when it comes to the process of business model development. And these are from Osterwalder and Pigneur, also researchers of the business model canvas, Wirtz from 2013, and Professor Buxmann from 2014. I do not want to go too much into detail, but maybe important to quickly show you the different, let's say, building blocks of some business model processes. So for Osterwalder and Pigneur, they start the business model process basically with the building block of to mobilize your business model project. And here the first step would be to prepare for a business model project design in terms of resource allocation, defining your objectives, and also assembling the right team at the first step. Then you have the understanding phase here. It basically ensures that your model is not just innovate, but also relevant, because you have to research and analyze all the elements that are needed for the business model design effort. Then you have the design phase. Here it really comes into action, and you generate and test different business model options or scenarios, and you select the best one in accordance or in alignment with your team that you have designed. And then you have the implementation phase. Here you use the prototypes that you have defined, and you implement them basically in the field. And finally, you have the manage phase, where you adapt and modify the business model in the response to the market reaction. A bit different is the approach of Wirtz. Here you start with an idea generation phase. So you scan basically your market or the environment, you collect together with your teams some ideas, and you make a rough conception of a potential business model and how it could look like. Then you make a feasibility analysis, so you go more into detail into the market analysis, and you make the assessment of the actual potential of this market. Then you are in the prototyping phase. Here, you basically detail a conception about how the business model can look like, and you go more into detail into the development of the different components of a business model. Then you have the decision making, because then you use all the phases from before, and you examine the efficiency of this potential business model, and you conclude the design. Then you have also, according to Osterwalder or parallel to Osterwalder, the implementation phase, where you set up the business model and you also communicate it to the team that you have set up. And finally, you have the monitoring and control, and this is very important because the business model, once defined, is not finalized. You always need to ensure that it's constantly further developed, and you're basically controlling the value proposition and secure your competitive advancement. A bit more simple in terms of the number of building blocks is the process defined by Professor Buxmann. Here you have the initiation phase, where you start with the environmental analysis. Then you create some ideas and you adopt different patterns that are very, let's say, famous from other companies. And then you have the integration phase where you design the actual business model, and finally you implement the plan. Yes, now I would like to give you some more, let's say, examples about how different business model patterns can look like. So what you can see here now on this slide are 3 different logos. The first one is Apple, then you have Windows, and finally PlayStation. And the question would be, what do have these 3 different models in common? And the answer is they have a business model conducted, it's called, or business model pattern, that's called switching cost. So, for example, for Apple, if you once are embedded into the Apple system, for example, you have an iPad or an iPhone, it's very hard for the actual customer to change to a different company. This is because they are basically make it very inconvenient for the customer to change, because then you have maybe all your apps already stored, or you are connected to an iCloud. Maybe you also have a MacBook that is connected to your phone. So for the customer, it's a high amount of cost in terms of time, or maybe also financial capital, to switch to another company. The same applies for Microsoft Windows, especially when it comes to professional fields, so in terms of company software that is used, or also PCs. Here also it's very difficult for the customers to change to a different company and to switch maybe to a different system. Same applies also to PlayStation, when you think about, for example, gamers who maybe also invested in different, let's say, achievements or online friendships that they already have for their, within their PlayStation ecosystem. So it's very difficult for them to switch. And why is this relevant? Switching, having a business model pattern that provides or enhances the switching of costs or makes it more difficult, can support you because it's also, basically locks in your customer for your business model. And to identify if you have maybe such a degree of switching cost, you can ask yourself how easy or difficult is it for your customer to switch to another company. Then other 3 different businesses are, for example, Nespresso, Salesforce, and Planet Fitness. And here again is the question, what might these different businesses have in common? And here the answer is they have recurring revenues. So for example, when you have Nespresso, basically you buy the machine, and when they still had the patent, you were basically forced to rebuy all the capsules for your coffee, especially for espresso, because you was not able to use the capsule from another company. So you have recurring revenues through this business model. Same applies, for example, for Salesforce, where companies have a subscription, pay a subscription fee in order to use their CRM tool. So you have recurring revenues month after month. And also for Planet Fitness, which is like a typical fitness studio, also here you have recurring revenues. And if you want to ask yourself, maybe have you a degree of recurring revenues into your business model, you can also ask yourself, is every sale a new effort for your customer, or is it just very easy for them, or will result in a follow-up revenue? Then we have 3 different companies, which is the Financial Times, Toyota, and Dell. And what they have in common is that they have a business model pattern implemented, which is called earn before you spend. For example, for the Financial Times, they also have a subscription fees, and with the subscription fee of their customers, they are basically producing the content of the month after, or for the next edition. For Toyota, here you have the just-in-time manufacturing, which is at the core of the business model of Toyota. So basically, they just produce the cars just in perfect time after they have been bought. And by this, they just, basically saving money because they don't have any inventory or less inventory than other companies. And the same applies for Dell, where they offer to their customers to design their own computer, and after they have paid for the computer, they assemble it. And here they can also use the revenue from the customer just in time to then produce the actual computer. So the benefit of this strategy is, of course, a better cash flow management, because it reduces the need for external financing and minimizes also the risk of holding excess inventory. Here you can also ask yourself, are you earning money before you're actually spending it, in order to identify if you have a business model pattern in place like this. Then we have the fourth of five examples, where we have, for example, Skype, Uber, and Netflix. And here it's kind of like obvious they have a game-changing cost structure. For example, when we think about Netflix and Uber, of course, as mentioned before, they basically provide their offering without having any physical offer in place. And by this, they basically had completely changed the way how they have like their cost structure. And here you can ask yourself if your cost structure sustainability is different and better than those of your competitors, because, for example, you don't have any physical assets in place. And the last one are Red Hat, IKEA, and Facebook. Here also the question, what do they have in common? And the answer is they actually let others do the work for them. So if you see, for example, for IKEA, basically the package come to you at home and you have to do the assembly by yourself. So they are outsourcing that kind of work. And same applies also, for example, for Facebook, where the actual user produce the content, which is the key value of the company. So here you can also ask yourself, how does your business model maybe integrate customers into or third parties to create the value for you? Yes, we already spoke about value proposition. As mentioned, the value proposition is at the heart of each business model. So the value proposition is, of your product or service is what distinguishes you basically from your competition. You can ask yourself, what are the unique benefits or features that you offer which meet your customer needs and what they basically want. And to identify your value proposition, you can consider the following, or ask yourself, what problem are you solving that no other product or service in the market can offer to your customers, and what features or benefits make your product or service unique, and why should your actually customers choose your product or service over the product or service of others. Also, one interesting theory I would like to introduce you in terms of value proposition is the Blue Ocean strategy that was developed by Kim and Maubourn in 2005. And yes, basically this model shows how you can differentiate yourself from the competition when you define your value proposition. And as you can see here on the slide, you have two different oceans defined by them, which is the red ocean and the blue ocean. And the red ocean then stands for the existing market you might operate in currently. According to Kim and Maubourn, this market is characteristics based on a battle from different market segments and expand existing demands. And the objective would be to get to the blue ocean, because the blue ocean is a newer market, without competition, and where you have a value proposition that really creates and attracts new demands. So that's a theory, and maybe now it's difficult to ask, how do I get into this blue ocean? They also provided one further, let's say, method or visual tool which supports you in defining your value proposition. And here, on the left side, you can see a graph that they used on the example of an airline. And on the x-axis, you can see the factors that are relevant from your customer's point of view when they decide if they want to buy your offer or the offer of your competitor. So in terms of an airline, I can zoom in a bit, This is, for example, the price to get from point A to B, but also how are the meals in the airline? Do they have lounges at the airport? Do they have seating class choices? How is the connectivity? Is the service on board friendly? How fast is the connection? And how frequent is the point-to-point departures? On the y-axis, you can see then how much or what is the level that your offering is performing in comparison to your competitor. So, for example, we have here Southwest Airline, who assessed itself according to or against these different factors. And then they also provided an average airline which they assessed according to these factors, and also thought about alternative transportation systems, which are also competitors, for example, like car transportation. And then they can see against all of these factors where they are, for example, better or worse in comparison to the two competitors, direct and indirect competitors. And this is an exercise that you can also use in order to define your own value proposition and see where you might maybe change the factors, create new factors that are relevant for your customers, or reduce them, or maybe also eliminate different factors. And finally, I would also like to introduce you a bit more into detail about the topic of business model patterns. As mentioned, these are recurring elements that are identified in a lot of different business models that are from successful companies across all different industries and contexts. Examples were also provided by Henry at the very beginning with the cow example. These are typical business model patterns. And by analyzing and understanding these patterns, you can leverage like proven strategies from successful companies into your own business model. And the objective of these business model patterns is not to reproduce them one by one, but more to use them as an inspiration. Two examples of catalogs that you can use as inspiration are from the researcher Remane from 2017, who has like approximately 300 different business model patterns identified that you can use. Of course, also from Osterwalder, and also more visual from Orange Hill. We also provide you with the references. And finally, of course, nowadays, we also need to think about sustainability when we talk about business model development. And here also researchers from Germany, Lüdecke Freund, have identified 45 business model patterns that you can use in order to make your business model more sustainable. And they have grouped them into 11 different categories that you can see here. And these are also in this taxonomy basically ordered to the dimensions of economy, ecological and social sustainability. And when you think about business model development, we can also highly recommend to use these patterns in order to consist or think about sustainability in your business model development process. Yes, this was the overview from our side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Katrin and Henry, for this fine presentation. Anybody has a question? Or we can proceed with our panel discussion. I have invited Professor Murgis, but he's probably occupied in another panel. We'll see, maybe he join us later. In the meantime, we can all sit here on the table. Okay. We are representatives of certain partners from Italy, Germany, Greece, and Bulgaria. We are missing only Austria, the representative from Austria. Supposedly, we are building a network, and we expect to exchange good practices and learn from each other. Do we do anything more interesting here in the South? Have we already any good practices from the past to present? And what are the next steps that we foresee for a changing future, a rapidly changing innovative community, innovative ecosystem in our area and in our areas? So, should I start from my left? Okay. Ladies first. Ina, please give us a short answer in the following questions. Give us a short description of what have you done in the past. Are you satisfied with what have you done in the past? Do you think that something that you do is something that you need to share with us, and maybe we can learn and duplicate maybe?
Yes, thank you. So basically, Cleantech Bulgaria has been an active player, let's say, in the startup ecosystem for almost 10 years. Of course, 10 years ago, you know that the topics of interest, let's say, of the starting businesses were very different. So I could say that we were the ones who, let's say, started this entrepreneurial journey into sustainability, circular economy, and all the topics related, and inevitably, of course, bringing the innovation and further technology development. We are, as you know, official partner and a representative of the European Institute of Innovation and Technology. Through our cooperation with them, we were able to offer on the market many opportunities for startups to apply for mentorship, to get support from the big European industry players on the market, to obtain grants, of course, starting from the very, let's say, ideation phase up until scaling. But basically something that didn't change much for all the years, something that we have as best practice, I would say, is to somehow provide the full experience. So not only offering a program where it starts and it ends and that's it. We always trying to find further opportunities for the startups and for the companies, both in terms of business development, so further funding opportunities, further mentoring support, etc., but also to put them in contact with whoever is relevant for them in terms of policy developers, or again, local big industry players that can further elaborate on the market and how they need to what they need to focus on in order to expand more. This is something that in the European Institute of Innovation and Technology ecosystem is known as the knowledge triangle. So basically connecting entrepreneurs with education, where they can also both take and provide. So basically connecting them with, and when I mean education, I don't mean only universities, but also vet centers and the full educational chain. And then also the authorities. So yeah, it had to be short, but briefly, this is for me our recipe of success, providing kind of a 360 degrees view on the support to the ecosystem.
Yes, thank you. We are a science park, so I can understand what you just said, and we've lived inside this triangle. Patras Science Park was built by the state. Today we are supervised by the General Secretariat for Research and Technology. So we have the state as one point. And of course the educational, mostly academic world for us is another important point. Most of the companies that are hosted in our incubator have emerged from the University of Patras. They are spin-offs of the university. They are research teams guided by certain professors here, academic personnel, that have this extra, feeling for entrepreneurship, and they come and we provide the housing. But we'll talk about the Greek ecosystem a little later. Henry, can you also share with us about your past achievements as a Fraunhofer IPK on this subject?
Yes, of course. So thank you for the question. Fraunhofer, maybe to explain all who are not that familiar with it, is an applied research institute in Germany. We are partly funded by the state, but we also have 70% of revenue we need to generate by our own. So it's a mix between public and private factors, I would say. And this is, I think, for Germany, especially the innovation system, a really important mixture, because on one side, the government funding gives us a little bit more freedom and maybe longer developing researching projects to really lay foundations, do applied research and come up with new processes. And the other part where then Fraunhofer has like over 75 different institutes where we work together with some business clients, we can actually see what are their needs. For example, a car manufacturer maybe needs a new method to recycle their tires, and then do this, I would say, direct cooperation between the businesses, but also the state side. It gives us a lot of advantages. We can then, for the customer, use the research we did before, which was maybe more government financed, to tailor solutions toward them. So from the business side, we understand what the main needs are, and from the other side, we can develop certain processes to help with that. And what also stems from that, it's approximately 15% of Fraunhofer researchers who, after they've maybe finished their PhD, they create their own company. So during the projects, they might have found a topic very interesting. They developed a certain method, be it a process for maybe drilling some new screws, or a business process, like a colleague does with sustainable benchmarking. And from that, they then do a spin-off. They are often supported by Fraunhofer or universities. So that shows that through the collaboration between the Fraunhofer and the private company, and the state funds, new ideas can be generated, and this can then turn into startups. So I think Fraunhofer supports the innovation system on several sides. First, doing research, applied research, creating new processes. Then second, combining that with the customers, the industry clients, what they need. And thirdly, some of them also create then their own startups from these collaborations, which are then active in the innovation ecosystem.
Great. I think 15% of the graduates is an impressive percentage. I have no knowledge of our achievements here in Greece, in the Western Greece, but one thing I can say is that, as we will see probably tomorrow, the graduates from this university now tend to continue with their entrepreneurial, vision. Okay, let's hear from our colleague Valerio from Italy, from Rome. What does Amalfi Foundation has done in the past?
Yeah, so thank you for this opportunity to talk about my the foundation of which I am part of. So the Amalfi Foundation, for those who don't know, is the foundation of technology transfer of the Italian Space Agency. It is a quite young foundation because we were established in 2017 from this private research consortium, that is the Ipazia Research Consortium, and the Italian Space Agency. We have basically the aim to support the technology transfer in Italy, starting from the space sector. Because of this, we have basically several activities from what concern support to the entrepreneurial ecosystems and organization of networking events, support to the companies and startups to reach what are the funding opportunities for, well, most suitable for them, of course, with a first of all strong focus on the space sector, but more in general in the, within the innovation ecosystem. For what concern our main milestones, as I can, call them, for example, we have created the first venture capital fund totally dedicated to space in Italy. We are now the technology advisor of this fund and the key institution. Tomorrow we'll, for example, have my presentation providing you some insights about the tech due diligence that we do for the fund. We have two main events every year. First one is the new Space Economy Expo Forum that will be from the 5th to the 7th of December this year in Rome. And the second one is Spring of Innovation, which is more, let's say, flexible in the dates, but it's from the beginning to the end of spring. And both of them are for the fostering of business ideas, support to the startups, SMEs, and also large companies in some details. We have a long experience as ESA business applications ambassadors, so we've been for years the point of contact of several startups that wanted to, let's say, enter in the network of ESA and be financed from ESA, and is a European Space Agency for those who don't know, to get the funding. Well, we are also coordinators of 3 different projects. First of all, Spread2inno, which is the project that is hosting us today for startups in this state of scale-up. Entrepreneur is another project for less mature, let's say, startups and teams of students, and a third project that is about sustainable carbon farming, that is Inno4CFI. So this is what comes to my mind for the moment, but so this is the kind of activities that we do. There are many more that probably right now I'm not, don't come in my mind, but anyway, that's it.
Thank you, Valerio. I believe that we all struggle with the lack of funding, and we try to provide services to our startups, to our local ecosystem, and trying to be more helpful without having all the resources, at least the southern partners mostly. But since we are dealing with innovation and innovative startups, we have to apply innovative concepts in our work, in our daily work also. There's no reason to give you an account of what is the Patras Science Park. We had the chance to present each other in other events and they know very well our attendants or viewers. But it comes to my mind that we occasionally are, sorry, Tina, I have turned my back to you. We tend to find ways to find funding and ways to do innovative projects. Innovative projects not in the sense of Spread2inno, other kind of projects, initiatives. Initiatives either starting from local authorities here, region is a good source of initiatives. But, for example, you know, Greece is number one in shipping, not manufacturing of ships, but ship business, maritime transport. There was a ship owner, I think he was here in Patras. We have several in Patras. I know I had one in my neighborhood. And we convinced him a few years ago, just before the COVID, we convinced him to supply the funding so that we initiate a program about the proof of concept program, proof of concept, where we were selecting young companies and providing them 50,000 euros each to prove their concept with continuous support from the park personnel staff. And this was a very successful project initiative that stopped only because of the COVID situation. And we are currently discussing how to start communicating with the same ship owner and so that he will supply the necessary funding, because it's a significant funding. Then we had the opportunity to establish a cooperation network with the Orange Grove. Orange Grove is a nice word, means, yes, beautiful. Orange Grove is a consortium consisting of the Dutch Embassy, Dionysia,
yes.
Who else?
No, that's Embassy.
Dutch Embassy. There are more parties in this consortium. And together, we were running a pre-incubation, an incubation at the early stage in our facility. Orange Grove is stationed in Athens, but they had a branch inside the park. So we had a very good cooperation, and we ran a program for early incubation and guidance to prospective young entrepreneurs. This program hasn't stopped exactly. It's only that the branch was eliminated, the local branch, so we have to do all the networking through the main office in Athens. Anyway, I believe that there are always ways to provide interesting services to our local target groups as long as we think innovatively and outside the box. But we are living in changing times. We hear a lot about the climate, energy, lack of funds, higher investment risks lately because of the war in Ukraine, the situation in Israel and Lebanon, in the Gaza Strip, etc. Wars everywhere, and that this changing in the world situation is going to affect our work. So we have to think again innovatively, but we also have to enhance maybe the scope of our services. Take advantage of new tools like the digitization that was spread like lightning in Greece, at least during the COVID time. We have learned to talk to each other from a distance, a lot, and efficiently and effectively. So I want to ask you, do you have any plans, Ina, to change your course, to do something more interesting, more effective in your services towards the innovation community?
Yes, so I wouldn't say change, but more of adapting. Already for the last year, and we were discussing earlier, there was a new initiative under the European Digital Innovation Hubs, which aim to actually support the innovation in the European countries. There is a network of 500 digital innovation hubs along Europe. Cleantech Bulgaria is part of 2 of them. There are 4 hubs in Bulgaria. And all of them, so regardless of where they are located, they are offering a set of services exactly in order to allow people, allow entrepreneurs to create, test, and go to the market with some innovative ideas. They are, one of the things is the test before invest service. So all of the hubs will be offering demo points where startups, SMEs can go and test their product or service before they invest in it in order to put it on the market. This is one thing. Then, of course, they will be offered support in terms of finding funding sources. And not only in a way that they identify the sources and from then on their own. No, they will be offered trainings in order to support them on their approach to investors, market analysis, identifying different opportunities. But you mentioned at the beginning of today briefly about our countries, or at least from the ones that we represent, 3 out of 4, based on the results of the innovation scoreboard for multiple years already, are positioned in the emerging or moderate innovators. And for me, clearly, this is showing that there is much more that can be done in order to support the creation of innovations in our countries. I personally believe that nowadays there are many, many opportunities for entrepreneurs, students who want to make the next step to start a business, already existing startups, scale-ups, and SMEs. So for me now, the right way to go would be to work more on the quality of those opportunities. So not that much on the quantity, but more on joining forces with different stakeholders who offer similar support, let's say, in order to improve the quality, to improve the engagement on the side of the startups, as you already mentioned some of the consequences from the, let's say, the COVID era, which is still not over, but at least for the last 2 years, the impact on the level of engagement, especially in opportunities that are, let's say, taking a bit more of involvement. So regular participation in learning sessions. This has been shown for the last year since the COVID is, the rates are lower. Is a challenging thing because people got used to the fast consumption that the online environment is offering. So I believe this is like they should be done in parallel. So improving quality of the services that are provided for the startup support, but then also supporting the entrepreneurs in their engagement level and participation in them.
Thank you, Anna. Henry, what about your future plans, the near future plans? What do you have in planning that will differentiate your performance from the past?
Thank you for the question. So I think I can only answer for my department, of course, in Fraunhofer, as we have so many different institutes and they all focus on very particular things. But for us, something that we do basically every year is like a strategy meeting. So the whole department comes together and sees what are the products, the research that we are doing right now, and how does it match with the market, what is needed by the companies. As you said, it's now very uncertain times, maybe investment is low. So also for us, it's important to find, okay, our industrial clients, what do they need, what are they asking for? And then we match, okay, which services do we have at the moment? What is the market looking for? And we think about how can we combine that? How can we develop maybe new services from the things we already have that are more close aligned to what customers or the industry is seeking? So I think this is one of the major things that we do to always yearly realign our interests, our expertise with the market demand to then change to their needs and offer them solutions that we can provide.
Thank you, Henry. And Valerio, do you have something in mind that you can share with us?
Yeah, as like Harry and Fraunhofer, I can speak about the business part, the business and finance part, but we have also departments that are working on the research and technology. So I will maybe leave in the next opportunity to talk about this, but I will focus on my department in the activity in which I'm involved. For example, we have now a strong collaboration with University of Rome, Louis, with which we have opened this observatory of the space finance in Italy.
Of the space?
Space finance. And it will be basically the framework in which we will study the evolution and the trends of the space industry and space economy in Italy and also in Europe. This is very good opportunity for us not only to have an overall view of what is happening in the space sector, but also to define new and to enable new instruments of alternative finance. So we have, as I mentioned before, we have created these venture capital funds. There will be other instruments in the future that I cannot disclaim at this moment, but it's just just to give you some spoiler, non-spoiler of what will happen in the future. We have opened also an office in Turin, another important city in Italy for the aerospace, and because there is a very strong cluster of companies that are focused on the space sector, and we are trying to let's say create this and fortify, enhance these clusters for creating different poles of innovation all around the country. So Turin and Piedmont is our step, let's say current step. Maybe there will be more in the future. But we will see. Thank you.
Very interesting. We're running out of time, but I want, as a concluding remark, to express a vision that we have developed lately here in Patras, which is related to this project a lot. You know, to connect the pains and the gains, we have two pains in Greece, in our area in general. One is the lack of cooperation between local relevant organizations. Whenever I say that, everybody in other countries says it's the same everywhere. I don't know if it's the same everywhere, but this has to change. We have to sum up forces because otherwise the cost is unbearable, is huge. So by sharing forces, we reduce a lot the cost and we make our support services much more effective. The second pain here is the lack of investors. Investments have stopped for many years because of the financial crisis. We are not the only ones that were hit by this financial crisis, but we were hit much stronger than the others. And this financial crisis and difficulty in the accessing of investments lasted almost 10 years. So these are the pains. This project is giving us the opportunity to link with other organizations, not locally, but internationally. We have to start thinking of the European Union as the United States, as a union of states, so that it shouldn't be difficult to access funding from Belgium through EBAN, for example, or Germany or France or anywhere, if the Greek investors do not lack the funding or they are not motivated enough for several reasons. Geographical ranges and borders should not be an obstacle in investments. This is my first observation. The second one is that we must start developing local networks of cooperation. And these local networks could be the little cells that can be connected internationally so that this network covers all the European Union. And this is our vision for the future. And I believe that in a step-by-step process, we can start very soon to materialize it. The start is this project, Spread2inno. I love this project, and I expect to have several very interesting results, including the innovation platform that we will develop. We are in discussions with local organizations here. Last Friday, I was discussing with the Vice President of the organizing committee. He's a professor in the University of Patras. And we shared the same vision about establishing a local network, not a vague network, but a very, very strongly linked a network of organizations very strongly linked. As I said, most of the companies in the park have emerged from the University of Patras. University of Patras is the main producer of innovations, but it is different to send it to the park as a tenant than keep supporting it and support us so that we maximize the effect of our services. And we have some plans that we cannot discuss yet until we make them more formal. We have signed with the University of Patras, another University of Peloponnese, and a couple of more organizations, including the region, we have signed a memorandum of understanding. It's very new, and we have high hopes about it. But a memorandum of understanding does not create commitment, so we have to make it to something more formal. And with this, I want to conclude our discussion, and I want to thank you all for your patience today, and I hope that our audience through internet has enjoyed the seminar. Thank you very much.